I'm Storm Tracker meteorologist Jared Piepenburg with the general outlook here as we head over the next couple of weeks and continue throughout July. We're going to be checking on an upper level ridge, what that'll mean for the lower 48. We'll have the heat and we'll end up having some stormy weather in the week to come here and over the next couple of weeks as well, which is kind of shaping up to be in the central portion of the U.S. I'll pinpoint that for you coming up here. We'll take a look at the Drought Monitor in North Dakota. Special feature with that coming up. All right, our upper level flow. So we're jumping way up in the atmosphere here. The heat dome in place for the lower 48 here, mainly in the southern states, down near Texas and down in the southeast. Things change up slightly as we head throughout this work week. Eventually, the ridge starts to build across the west coast. That's going to keep the heat in place across the west and still across the southeast. Low pressure systems will travel over the ridge, kind of ridge riders there, drop down through parts of the northern plains, upper Midwest, over the Great Lakes. Precipitation looks like it'll be kind of between this area with that dip and that hot weather. Up here in the northern plains, we may see some chances of some showers and storms along the way. As we head toward the later part of this week, that ridge will slowly translate eastwards. We may have a little hotter weather for the northern plains, upper Midwest as we close out the week, and worth watching for those changes coming up here. So let's talk precipitation. As that ridge starts to build over the west coast, the Pacific Northwest may end up having a little drier weather, but looks like low pressure systems will build in the central plains. We'll get some Gulf moisture coming off the Gulf there with the high pressure system in place. I mean, they'll have this southerly wind coming off the Gulf, meets up with those lows that drop out of that ridge and producing some of that wet weather across the central part of the lower 48 there. Temperature-wise, we may just stay a little below average across the northern plains, including the Dakotas, parts of Minnesota, with that heat in place across the Pacific Northwest from San Francisco, Las Vegas, Portland, Vancouver, and then some hot weather down in Texas and off toward the eastern seaboard. A little closer to home here to check that out. We may end up just being a little bit cooler up here. We've had a lot of rain recently. Kind of much needed. Definitely noticed that in my lawn. Last 14 days, we've had some areas that inch to 2 to 3 to maybe even more near the international border. We've just had a lot of rain in parts of the Dakota, especially North Dakota and northern half of Minnesota. And with that in mind, with the Drought Monitor, North Dakota, no drought to be talked about here. Just a little bit down toward the Twin Cities and up into Wisconsin and parts of South Dakota. Otherwise, that's kind of where the closest dry conditions are at right now due to the drought monitor. Precipitation outlook as we head toward next week, looking a little below average for parts of the Dakotas. Again, similar setup with low pressure systems kind of developing in parts of the plains. Wet weather there from Dallas, Wichita, up toward Washington and New York. Just kind of in the central portion, the lower 48, where we'll end up being a little drier here. But next week looks like some of that heat will nose into our area, so expect some warmer weather here as we continue to the end of July.